Town hall meeting on the Village of Cleves tax levy. It is now 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. We can stand for the pledge to the flag. Which is over here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. President, we have the roll call, please.
Ms. Boyce?
Here.
Ms. Meister?
Here.
Mr. Byrne?
Here.
Mr. Hume?
Here.
Ms. Myers? And Mr. Williams?
Bless you.
Do you have a quorum?
Bless you.
All right, thank you for attending tonight. We're have a special meeting to specifically discuss any questions, and we can provide answers on the issue 20, the Village of Cleves tax levy renewal. That's going to be on the November 8th, 2022 ballot. So, given that it is a special meeting to discuss that, that is all we will be able to discuss tonight. Mr. Regal, do you have anything else?
Briefly, we're requesting a 3.9 mil renewal of a levy. This will not raise property taxes currently. It will generate $209,000. The village operates on essentially about 70% of our money that we operate on comes from property tax. We have no income tax, as you know, or may not know. The 6 mil levy that failed was $277,000 of the money that we operated on. We have two levies that are continuous. Those go for fire and police. And then we have a general operating levy of 3.9 mils. On the back of your sheet, you'll see that of the millage that you pay, if you're a property owner, we get about 19% of the money. The school gets a larger percentage of that, obviously, and the rest goes to county projects and programs. The money will be used to operate the village, to pay for salt, street lights, maintenance of the parks and the city buildings, zoning, street lights, again, police coverage. We will obviously continue to provide police, fire, and clearing of the streets, but we also are in need of plow trucks, and we're a couple employees down also. So that in a nutshell is the reason we're asking for the 3.9 mils for operations on November 8th. Any comments from council, or we can open it up to questions?
Open up questions.
Good. If you have any questions, if you just give us your name, Mr. Britt will take that down as he takes notes.
I have a comment. In Hamilton County, as you said, there's no income tax here. How many other municipalities in Hamilton County don't have an income tax?
I believe there are 3, Terrace Park, North Bend, and Cleves.
Okay, thank you.
There are no income taxes in the townships because townships cannot charge income tax, if that's the question.
So you're saying this money that you're trying to raise on the taxes goes for policing
Partly,
and zoning,
partly.
for them to park? Is that what you're saying?
No, for the park, and anything that runs our day-to-day
But
operations.
the village itself doesn't benefit in any way from the tax levy at all?
Sure, that's the money we use to operate the village,
Okay.
to buy salt.
So when we ask questions, why are we not getting answers? I want to know if it's legal to build a structure,
Ma'am,
not a
this is
lean-to
talking
on
about
your
the
property.
levy.
That's all I'm asking.
This is just discuss the levy. That's what we can discuss here at a special meeting. So we can't discuss structures and.
Well, I mean, if the money is being used to take and benefit the village, we went driving around and found quite a few properties that were pretty bad. So apparently the village is not paying any attention to the downtown area of Cleves.
So we renovated, what, 207? Not renovated, but we got 207. We just sold that. Is that right?
Behind 414 North Finley and the house next to it, in that alley, both those properties should be condemned. It's horrible.
I'll write that down.
What's the address again? We probably have it.
414 North Finley, in the alley, behind it. And also 119 North Miami. That's what I'm asking, is if this money is being used for the village, then do the job. I mean, she lives in a home right now that if she put it on the market, it's not gonna sell. I mean, it's just not. That horrible scene we got in the backyard just keeps growing and growing. We got people out there with flashlights at night. We got people with sticks. Why is the police not doing anything, and why is the village council not looking into the problems? If the money's going for the village, I want to know why.
The money is generated for general operating. The issues that you're talking about more are planning and zoning issues. As a village, we can't just
I know,
go
but
to
here's my
someone's
question,
property
Jerry.
and take
Apparently
over
Tiffany's
and
not
run
here
it.
tonight, so nobody can give me a straight answer. Is it, I'm not even trying to start trouble or nothing.
Mhm.
Is it legal to build on your property without a permit? Because they said it's being used for something else, but we, the neighbors that live on that side street and on Porter, we all see it, we know what's going on, but we can't get a straight answer. There's people living inside that structure, we just want to know if that's legal.
How about when we adjourn this meeting, we'll address your issue. How's that?
Well,
Should
no,
be
that
time.
ain't good enough, because it's been addressed many times and nothing's been done. So I'm saying, if for the general purposes of the money going for the village and for the police, then why is nothing getting done? Nothing's being done. And I'm not the only one I'm the voice. I can take you to everybody that I've talked to, and they're wanting to know why this is being allowed, first off.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, like, just recent council meetings that we had, we did make changes to nuisance orders and ordinances.
That's another thing, why?
But the reasons why is to actually make it stricter, to be able to actually implement change. Is that,
Well,
Correct.
look,
and
if we
in
go
those
and look
cases,
at all the
just like the
ordinances.
closure of the big building that was in North Bend,
Right,
that was definitely a nuisance.
right.
Terrible building,
Oh, yeah.
terrible things happening
You
there.
200%.
They had things that were in place to be able to shut that place down, condemn it, and tear it down.
Right.
A lot of the things that are happening in Cleves, we want to be able to do it, we have to do it the right way legally, because we're held to the law.
And look, I agree with you, but
It's
here's
tightening
the,
those things up to
here's
be able
the
to
issue.
allow
All
those things
the
to happen.
ordinances that you all implemented, every single ordinance, if you take your written ordinances and go down there to 119, you tell me how many of them that he's doing legally.
Yeah, I
Because he's broke every one of them. And she's got something to say, she's a little bit nervous,
I'm just
so
a bad public
just
speaker.
go ahead.
Okay. In 2017, a levy was put on the ballot. It was issue 11, Safety Services Levy for Cleves. This levy did raise our taxes. We were okay with that because we wanted to keep our police department, but where is our police department now? You're asking for more money from the residents, and I understand it's not gonna raise our taxes, but how can we trust that you will use the money for what you claim it's for? I say this because 2 years after we passed issue 11, our police department was dissolved. I don't want to see the village of Cleves dissolved, but I don't feel confident that the majority of the current council is trustworthy.
Well, we do provide police services to the Hamilton County Sheriff's
We
Department.
wanted our police department, but that's what issue 11 was for. I've got the paper right here, and it says Cleves Police Department, not Hamilton County.
Well, the levy was for safety services, that includes fire, life, and police.
Right.
the fact that we don't have our own police department, we still are spending that money on safety services.
Oh, they're not getting taken care of, that I can tell you
We
that.
have so many instances of them not even showing up when they're
Yeah.
called. It's
Yeah.
not the same as when we had our police department. And the community policing that you mentioned in here, Hamilton County does not do that.
Nope,
It's completely different.
yeah.
So I'm just confused as, I understand why you need the money, but I just don't feel confident that it's trustworthy. That it's gonna be used for what you're saying it's gonna be used for.
It has to be used for that. It's. in the
Well, this
safety
should have been,
services.
have to be used for that as well then, and it wasn't.
It's being used to provide police services to the village.
But it wasn't, it was to keep Cleves Police Department, and we don't have a Cleves Police Department
Well, it's a
anymore.
difference of opinion, but it's to provide police services to the village of Cleves.
But you switched from Cleves Police to the Hamilton County because it was cheaper, right?
Less expensive and higher quality.
Okay, well, we're
It's
getting,
not higher
trust me,
quality.
we're getting, it's not higher
No.
quality, and we are getting a less expensive. And it's sad. They might take care of you all up in Coleman Woods, but not down in the downtown area.
My question is, I'm just trying to make sure that I understand, the levy that didn't pass a year
Yeah,
ago.
but they
Um,
can't say.
This
Yeah.
operating levy that we're talking about, issue 20, isn't
Yeah,
to
but it's
replace
from
that,
them.
it's to replace another levy that is
And it
expired.
says
There were
right
two
there,
separate levies, one
Cleves
for
Police.
six and one for 3.9.
Okay.
And is there a plan to put another levy on them in the spring? To replace the one that failed twice?
We have not discussed that yet, but at some point we do need to discuss, how we're going to generate the funds that were lost with that levy, but at this point it has not been discussed.
So even if this levy passes, we're still gonna be down $277,000?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
all right. So this is just not to go in any deeper than we already are?
Right.
Right.
One of the services that you all mentioned is the zoning, building permits obtained through the village as opposed to the county. I think I've kind of asked this before, how many permits is Cleves actually issuing and giving out? And is it really worth, didn't there used to be meetings on the building department? I haven't seen anything.
There was no building department meeting, so it was planning and zoning, is that what you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't do that anymore?
No, they're held as needed. If there's a project or a plan or they were held for variance requests, they weren't held for building permits. Our building department handled those without.
How many
Going to
permits
the
do we actually issue?
I don't have that number.
I mean, is it like 1, 5, 10, you think, in a year?
That depends. We're fairly landlocked. We don't have a lot of land, so there's not a whole lot of building.
So then I guess this being on here really isn't a big issue if we're not doing anything with it, is it?
If you've ever done anything at your property and had to deal with Hamilton County, it's more of a convenience for residents, to be able to get it through the village versus having to deal with Hamilton County and all of your.
And I don't disagree. It's not really an issue if we're not doing anything, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just
A few
fine.
years ago, when they were building the school, there were a lot of permits, there was a lot more activity then, when they were finishing up that last part of Coleman Woods, but here recently, there has not been a whole lot of new buildings progress.
Roy Rogers.
I'm
Roy
sorry?
Rogers was the most recent building permit, and there's gonna be some additional building on that property in the near future also.
Well, I mean, for instance, I asked about the landslide in Coleman Woods. It wasn't reviewed, there was no permit issued, there was no inspection, at least that you were aware of. I don't know the point.
Was Coleman Woods covenant to have a civic association when, in the covenant of the deed?
I'm sorry, I will hard hearing you with the maps.
Well, I had COVID recently. When you signed a deed on your house closing, did it mention a civic association?
It mentioned that-
Homeowners Association, but you don't see that until after you close, so it was an after, you don't see it. I didn't.
It's in your deed when you sign the deed, when you buy the property. It discussed an HOA. discussed an HOA being brought in when they've completed the community up there, but that hasn't been brought forth, so there is no HOA there currently.
Thank you.
Mr. Britt, you have a question?
Just on the issue of permits, we do, and I don't have a number, but we do a lot of permits for things like fences, new roofs, repairs,
Solar panels.
pools, solar panels is becoming a big thing. So there are a lot of those things, and while you may not think, well, what's the big deal about a new roof? You get a contractor that isn't doing things right, and having a qualified building inspector like Mr. Mercer can come in handy. Same with people are putting solar panels on roofs, and I happen to know of one out of state that they put a really nice set of solar panels on their roof, but nobody checked the roof to see if it would support it, and now the solar panels are in the upstairs. So there are benefits to having a local person doing that, and that's just my opinion, but we do issue a lot of those type permits.
I don't disagree, but the key to that is actually someone reviewing it and going out and inspecting it when it's being built. And I got a feeling we're not doing that.
Oh, we are by law.
Mr. Mercer does that.
What about policing?
Every permit that's issued has to be a final inspection by Mr. Mercer or his business.
I mean, Roy Rogers, when you had, I kept a look at the erosion control, that wasn't until I brought it up.
That's an engineering issue, and that was brought up and it was dealt with. The building permit, the building itself, well, before there's an issuance of occupancy, it will be
Okay,
inspected
during
by the building
construction.
inspector and the fire department.
According to Soil Conservancy District, you're supposed to have it once a month. Have you been out there again?
I haven't, but I'm sure we have, our JMA is there, and so is another person working with JMA that does inspections and checks to make sure there's no erosion as part of their contract with us.
What about the street in front of us right now? Haven't that just recently been?
That was a project that was applied for. We've been trying to get that loan and grant for the last 8 years. We finally secured that. It's a $650,000 combination grant and loan, so it's a 30-year loan over. It's half of the money, $325,000 is a loan, which is paid for over a 30-year period at 0% interest. And the rest is a grant. That included curbs and sidewalk that needed to be replaced. And that was something that was started a little bit before I came as part of, through JMA and the council itself.
Well, Nick from Nick's American Cafe likes it and wants to thank the village for it. So as far as the complaint that things are always happening in Coleman Woods and not down here in the village, if you walk outside and look at this street right in front of you,
Okay, but did you walk in our backyard and look?
I think that you're having a conflict with the neighbor.
Well, you can think that all you want to, because the other neighbors around there are a little bit fed up with this council because nothing is getting done. And you know what, since you think everything gets done down here in Cleves, drop down there on 414 Finley and go through that alley and tell me what's been done. You might live down here, but you don't get out and investigate around
I
you.
do.
There's
I
a
think
lot of
it-
crap down here in this downtown area that goes on. We just recently had a fight, a very violent fight that broke out at 119. As a matter of fact, they were blocking traffic out there fighting in the middle of the street. So I don't care what you think. What I think is that somebody needs to get up off their rear and they need to start looking at some of these very bad properties down here in Cleves and condemning them. It's ridiculous the things that you're letting people get away with.
Can we check to see if that was marked as a nuisance?
You had mentioned, you said something was started with JMA prior to starting. Could you expand on that a little bit? I didn't catch all that.
Before I was administrator, Danny Stacy and JMA applied for a grant to do the paving for South Miami. At the time, we could only get 100% loan, and we didn't think that was gonna be afforded. So we worked with JMA and the state, and eventually got a small municipality loan through the state that gave us half of the money for a grant, and our matching fund could be financed by a 30-year loan.
Thank you.
The South Miami project has been on our radar, on our plans since we did North Miami. That's how far back it goes.
For the state receipts of $240,000, does that get affected in any way by the levies that we pass? Is there any consideration of our levies when the state funds us?
No. There is a chance that that could be cut though, because of, from the state. Our local government fund was about twice that a couple of years ago, and that's been reduced. That's essentially supposed to be a sharing, revenues from casinos, sharing revenues from sales tax, and things like that. Do you have any other breakdown of the state receipts in general?
Well, the one thing that I think is gonna stand out in that 2021 state receipt, our Recovery Act money from the federal government came through the state. So
So this is an inflated number, probably won't be that in the future.
$176,767 in Recovery Act money.
Yeah.
I
You
thought
know,
that number was high.
yeah, and this year, and then we got another $705 that they missed giving us earlier. But this year, we received another $177,000. In essence, that's allowed council to do some of the projects that they've been doing. An example of that is the Jackson Dell storm sewer that was done as an emergency repair because it actually collapsed.
So compared to like pre-COVID time period, that 170 the last 2 years has kind of plugged part of the hole of the 270, the
Yeah.
277 is put in our budget.
Yeah, we've already spent, out of the $354,000 that we've received in that, we've spent almost $226,000 of that on repairs.
Makes sense.
And those are repairs that otherwise would have had to have come out of general fund money.
So if we pass this levy and we do nothing else, just looking at that alone, and we get 170-ish less in state funds, our budget next year will likely be about 170 less than it is this year.
I would project that.
Okay.
Refresh my memory, that's about a third of it. Is that about right?
Yes, right now, a third. So just if, like our general property tax receipts this year, and that money's in, came in a little higher than expected, and we ended up with $377,000 this year, compared to the year before, when we had the 6 mil levy, we had $654,000, so. And I think one of the reasons that we received a little extra that we weren't expecting in general funds, it's kind of happened with a lot of communities. During COVID, people just couldn't pay their taxes. And I think that's understandable with the economy and the shutdown and things, a lot of businesses just couldn't pay. So we'll probably see a little less when we project our income for next year, even in the general tax fund.
Jim, can you expand on something you talked about, the TIF money? How much TIF money does the district get? Does the village get?
You can bear with me long enough, I can find that number
I can give you
for,
the numbers you quoted at the last finance meeting.
great.
So at the last finance meeting, this was September 7th, you reported that we were getting TIF funds from Skyline, $49,077, but a portion of that goes to the school. And you reported that we currently have a total of $91,860 in our TIF fund.
And that's a gross amount,
I understand,
We have to
that's
do-
infrastructure, you can only use it for specific things, correct?
but I mean, that's not, we haven't paid the school their second payment
That's
yet.
not my
Okay,
question.
yeah.
What I'm saying is that's restricted to infrastructure improvement, is that not correct?
It's restricted to, property contiguous to the development, so it could be sidewalks, it could be.
That's infrastructure.
Yeah, but it also includes part of the downtown, so we're hoping to do some streetscaping with some of
That's
that.
infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's still infrastructure.
Yeah, we can't use it for general operating, you're correct, yes. It's only for, projects.
Contiguous, you said?
Contiguous plus, any route that would be considered going to that property, so that's why, in the ordinance itself, it explains what our limitations are for the TIF money, and it does include Miami Avenue and Cooper.
Is that 91 included in this chart? Like where would it be in these? Or it's just separate outside the budget?
And that's a separate fund that since we can't use it for general operating, that would be a special fund.
Are there any other pools, funds like that, or is that the only one that you can think of?
Well, the entire waterworks fund
Yeah.
is, I think that's a special revenue fund, so revenue generated by the water can only be spent on waterworks projects, so, that's not, this is general fund money that we're talking about, so
Appreciate it, thank you.
that's kind of a common misconception. Everybody thinks, oh wow, we got all this money in the waterworks fund, and like, well, but you can only spend it on waterworks. So,
Is the renewal for 5 years? Is
Yes.
issue 20 for 5? Okay.
Yes. The other two are continuous because they involve safety service, so we could request continuous.